Hi, everyone. Welcome to an extra special episode of Wildly Capable with Kate, the podcast made for those looking to unleash their wildest capabilities. I'm your host, Kate Durocher, and I am so excited about today's episode because joining me is life coach, TEDx speaker, and author Khanyisa Mnyaka. I met Khanyi about 2 weeks ago when we both were speaking on a panel, and I just absolutely loved everything she had to share, so I wanted to be able to share it with you too. Khanyi is on a mission to help people step into their most authentic selves through self-love, self-worth healing, and inner child work. I am so excited for you to get to hear from her. So without further ado, here's the episode. Khanyi, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to have you on the show. You are just amazing, and I loved meeting you at the event a couple weeks ago, and I'm just excited to share your wisdom with everybody else. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Good
Good
morning. I'm happy
morning.
to be here. I was so excited when you invited me. I was like, yeah, let's have a conversation
For
while I
everybody.
have while I have my coffee.
I had to put my coffee to the side because it was getting me too hyper. So I was like, we need to stop drinking this. You're gonna have a
This is
conversation.
my second cup. I limit myself at two. I'm like, you've had your two cups, like
Um,
you're good.
I love it. You're dialed in, you're focused. It's gonna be perfect.
Yes.
There
I'm
we go.
like, let's go.
Well, for everybody listening in, I met Kanye about 2 weeks ago at an event that we both spoke at. And then I
Mm-hmm.
just loved everything she shared. So I asked her to come on the podcast. Her and I grabbed coffee. We talked for like 2 hours and I just really connected with you. And I loved everything that you said. So
I
I just
know.
want everybody listening to get
We
to meet a
should
little bit of you too.
we should do that walk again.
Yes,
I'll
definitely.
tell you this. I don't know if people know how hot Texas is. I tried to do it yesterday, and the mistake I made was going around 4 p.m.
Oh no.
I turned around
No.
and like I was like, no, oh no, I might just die.
You can't do 4 p.m. Like we did what,
No.
9 a.m. and it was still
And
super.
that was still super hot. That was still, I feel like you should do 6 a.m. if you want to do like a longer,
Yes.
because yeah,
That's what I do with my dogs. I'm like, we have to get out before the sun really even comes up, or like it's not going to be safe for you.
no, it's not gonna work.
But it was a good workout and we had a great conversation.
We
So we made it
did.
work.
We're here. Look at
We're here.
us.
We're
And
here.
we text, like it
I
worked
love
out.
it. A great
Yeah.
relationship forming.
Yeah.
Well, I've gotten to experience a little piece of you. Why don't you just tell everybody listening in who you are and what you do, and
Mhm.
we'll kick off some questions.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Khanyisa, that's my full name. And people call me Khanyi, some people call me Coach Khanyi. I work as a self-love coach. I'm an author, I'm a TEDx speaker, I'm an entrepreneur. I literally do all the things. I'm from South Africa, but I've been in the States now for about 4.5 years. Oh my God, that feels so long. I've been here for so long. But I'm really enjoying it. I love Austin. I started working as a coach like in 2020 when we were all like,
Mhm.
in our homes trying to figure out why we're here. And I kind of used that time to reflect on my own, like, why am I here?
Yeah.
And sitting in my ex-partner and I, we had this like 300 square foot apartment in the city in Seattle with our dog. And it was really hard, but what I got to do, and I think a lot of people got to do as well, was kind of like look at ourselves and be like
Mhm.
digging into those questions of sort of
Yeah.
like purpose and your why. And I found myself kind of digging into like, first I was like, who am I inspired by?
Mhm.
And, like what were the things that I enjoyed when I was younger? And I would have this memory when I was in high school, like some kids would just like run to go play and be in sports and extracurriculum activities. But I was running home to watch Oprah and Dr. Phil and fucking like Ricky Lake, like that stuff was my shit. And then I got to this point where I was like, there has to be like purpose in the pain, right? I was like, how can I take all this stuff that I've been through and make it help someone else?
Mhm.
And then life coaching was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's so powerful and so beautiful because
Mm,
I think so many people we all go through things. No matter what in life, we're gonna get knocked down, we're gonna hit some curveballs, but not everybody gets back up and then does something with it. What do you think it was for you or for other people that you know in your life that got you back up and got you to do something with the pain you've experienced? How did you do it?
Oh, how did I do it? Oh, Kanye, how did you do it? I was raised by a very strong woman. I was raised by my
Mhm.
grandmother. My mom had me at 19,
Mm.
and as all 19-year-olds do, she has me at 3 months. She leaves. She leaves me with my grandparents. She chases her husband. She moves to Johannesburg with him,
Oh.
and I'm like my grandmother's youngest child, right? And so my grandmother is that person that will just keep going. Like her whole thing is to just keep
Mm.
moving. And she's 85 now, and I've just watched her go through so much shit, but she just keeps going. And also, I tend to see, I don't know how, but or where I learned it, but I think like we get to define
Mm.
what life does to us, and
Totally.
we get to choose. And it's like I could choose to be in the victimhood of my childhood. I could choose to like blame everyone around me. I could choose to be a victim of my circumstance, or I could choose to see myself as both. I don't like this narrative of you're not a victim, you're a survivor. I'm like, no, I'm both.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm both victim and survivor. And I'm somebody that works to transcend the survivor story, because
Mm.
some of us can get so stuck in that survivor story that we don't see anything beyond that.
Right.
And so
Becomes
I
our
think for
identity.
me, sitting with what can I do with this trauma and all of it is like, I want to transcend it. It
Mm.
can't keep defining me.
Yeah.
Something that happened, but
Yeah.
it can't keep defining me.
It really does become our identity. Like I know when I was in my healing journey, and I'm always in my healing journey, but when I first
Hmm.
started it, I like wore my trauma as if that's who I was. And I
Yeah.
had to learn that was something that happened, but it's not who you are. And now
Yeah.
today I sometimes forget I even went through those things because I've done
Hmm.
so much work around it.
Until
That's,
you have to talk about it, you're like, oh yeah, I did go through that.
oh well, that wasn't so great, was it?
Yeah,
Interesting. I
that
forgot.
was
It's so true.
tough.
It's so true, but I think that's how
Yeah.
like you've really gotten out of that victim mentality. And I
Hmm.
see so many people as a coach too who are stuck in that mentality. How do
Hmm.
you as a coach pull somebody out of that?
Great question. I sorry, but I think my clients have gotten used to me. It's like they'll say something and I'll just sit and close my eyes for like what feels
Mhm.
so long to them, and they're like, "Is she gonna say something?" I think that as coaches, what we can offer is tools,
Mm.
right? We can say, hey, here are the tools. But what I can't give my clients is the will to,
Yeah.
right? Like, and sometimes people use, and it's our safety blanket. It's so weird. Like our stories can also become our safety blankets. They can also become these things that we're addicted to. So how do you help someone break free from an addiction to a story? It's
Right.
like I had a client one time who said to me, I really want to change,
Mm.
but I am addicted to people feeling sorry for me.
Wow. So
Yeah.
he or she was aware of it.
Oh, she was so aware. She
Mm.
was like, I feel loved and seen when people feel sorry for me. And it's something I learned at 6 years old when my dad died. And people just started treating me with compassion and
Sure.
with care. And I was this like little girl with a broken heart. And
Mm.
I have carried that sense of shame.
Yeah.
And so how do you get someone from the shame and empower them to be like, that's not who you are. You're not an Akashem
Right.
person. And so, how I empower my clients is to reframe the stories that we
Mm.
have. It's like my story of poverty and growing up in South Africa. It's actually like now I see it as a fun story to share, right? Like, oh, this was my childhood. It wasn't fun, but it's my childhood.
Totally.
But when I am addicted to the story, it's like breaking an addiction. And it's
Hmm.
hard because that's an emotional addiction.
Totally.
That's like different from smoking, where I can like be like, yo, put that cigarette down. It's like, this is how I feel,
Yeah.
right? So,
That's
yeah.
powerful. I know you
Mm.
do a lot of like inner child healing. That's actually what you were
Hmm.
doing at the event when I
That
met
is what I
you.
was doing at the event.
Is that
Yeah.
something that helps with this, like break the addiction, get out of the victim mentality, start to move on with your life? Do you see that helping?
Such a good question. I want to sit with it for a second. Let me take a sip of my coffee. Um,
I love it. You're going to be just as wired as me here in a second.
Anxiety.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a 68-year-old client who is such a wonderful human being, and we were doing that inner child work yesterday, actually, and kind of like digging into those abandonment stories that we carry, and we carry them in life, we carry them in relationships, we carry them in friendships, we carry them in work, like constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for someone to leave, waiting for the good thing that you just received, being like, it's too good for me, someone is going to come and take it away, because things have been taken away from us. And I think doing inner child work it allows us to have so much compassion for ourselves. When I started doing it with myself, the holistic psychologist,
Yeah, I love her. Love
so
her.
much, love her so much. But the way that she does inner child work, it's so beautiful because I started with her when I started following with her, and I'm being like, oh, this is so important because these inner children are constantly present, constantly asking for our attention, screaming for our attention. And
Really.
what it does for me, and what I've seen it do for my clients as well, is like give yourself so much compassion, not pity. There's a
Yeah,
difference. Don't
very,
feel
very
sorry for
different
yourself.
things.
Those are two
Absolutely.
very different things. But when you give yourself compassion, you stop like treating yourself with so much harshness.
Mm,
You start to even want to work on yourself. You even want to change. You even want to like be different because you're like, yo, there is so much that happened to me that was out of my control. And when I can start doing that inner child work and like shining the light into those shadows of the stuff that happened to me, I can start with self-awareness and be like, yo, Khanyi, there's a reason you are the way that you are. You didn't just become the person that you are. And
mhm.
then two, that self-compassion, that self-forgiveness, that grace that you need every single day for yourself. And I think it does help you like sort of become a bit more active and a
Mm.
bit more intentional in your healing journey.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense because like you said, that inner child is with us always, and then you have your inner teenager and you have these little parts of you that continue with you unless you really take a step
Mm-hmm.
back and look at, wow, what happened, how did it make me feel, how is it like determining how I'm behaving and acting today,
Mm-hmm.
because we run on autopilot and we don't even realize it until we pause and take a good hard look.
Yeah. Which is why we need to pause. I
Yes.
am I am in the process of that pause right now, especially when it comes to romantic relationships.
Mhm.
I'm on like a, ooh, let's pause.
Mm,
let's
so good.
let's stop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's hard, it's hard. I think the hard part with that pause, especially for someone like me, like I love physical touch and
Totally.
snuggles, like that's where I struggle with it the most. But that pause has been like, why do you relationship the way that you relationship?
Mhm. What have you
What needs
uncovered
to change?
about yourself?
um Trauma.
Yeah. Always the trauma. Always.
Always a trauma. um I relationship the way that I relationship. I think for the long time, I've sort of convinced myself first that like I just had all this love to give, and I was just like so open and giving, and like I really love hard. And then a few years ago, actually about a year and a half ago, when my ex and I broke up, I was like, oh, no, 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 no. I relationship the way that I do because I am a people pleaser who is afraid of being abandoned. So
Mhm.
when I'm in romantic relationships, I self-sacrifice and I self-abandon,
So real.
right?
Yeah.
But then here's the awareness. And then I went and I repeated it recently. And so
Mhm.
this is why this pause has been so important to me, because I'm like, oh, hold back a little bit. So you can start to, and also like the truth is relational trauma is healed in relationships, right? Like I can take all the time that I want to take and pay attention and work on myself. The true test is when I am in relationship and seeing how I relationship differently. But the pause though is to say, pour into you now.
Mhm. It's like
Yeah.
both pieces have to happen. You have to have the pause so you can reflect, look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, you
Mm-hmm.
have this abandonment fear, or you think everybody's going to leave, or everybody's
Mm-hmm.
out to get you, whatever the narrative is, whatever the inner child hurt still is, you have to pause. But then you're
Mm-hmm.
so right. You can do so much healing on your own. But oh my gosh, when you're in a relationship, the healing is like 10x. You are facing
It's
yourself 10x.
bro, you're like, what?
What is this?
What is it? And so, like, the important piece for me, which is like also these trauma stories, right, that are rooted in our trauma. Um, I talk about it in both my books. Like, my deepest trauma when it comes to being abandoned is when I was 9, I watched my grandfather die.
Mm,
And that was my first abandonment story because he was my
right.
best friend. He
Yeah.
was also my protector, right? So when he died, gone, best friend gone, protector gone. I had to look out for myself, and that was hard.
Yeah.
And part of the pause for me now has been to that 9-year-old, right? To be like, hey, I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going anywhere. If
Yeah.
you don't get to accept less than what you deserve because you're scared someone's going to leave, let them,
So good.
right?
So good. I think
Yeah.
so many people need to hear that. Like I'm like you, where I hold on super tight to relationships and I
Mm-hmm.
say it's like one of my strengths and I just know how to fight for people and that's just who I am and it's a good thing. Sure, to an extent, it's good. But also what it was doing was self-abandoning. I was
Mm-hmm.
choosing that person over myself every single time. I was ignoring my boundaries, my needs,
Mm-hmm.
everything, just to
Mm-hmm.
get them to stay. And I know
Mm-hmm.
you do a ton of work around with people around self-love. Like, define self-love. What does that mean? And I know you also use a whole second layer, which is radical self-love.
Mm-hmm.
I think is so important to differentiate. Tell me what radical self-love is.
Okay, so when I started, I'll tell you this. I thought I was the first one to coin the term, and then I googled it.
You're
It's
like,
like,
who knows?
what?
Everybody says it.
It's like
Fantastic.
everybody says it. Damn it!
I'm going to point it to you.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. I was like, stop. Wanted something that felt okay. Let me sit with this one Capricorn a second. I was like, something that felt hard. I wanted something that felt intentional when it comes to loving ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, it took me working on myself to understand that self-love is just, it's so much deeper than the spa dates, and it's so much deeper than the self-care,
Mm.
which is also really important, right? Like, I have a solo date planned for myself tomorrow
Oh,
because
yay,
it's,
I love
I'm
that.
gonna go get myself a
Look at
pedicure,
you.
gonna go get some sushi.
So good.
I love pedicures, by the way. It's like my favorite thing ever. Um, but when you say radical self-love, it is, I want to look at the parts of me that are very, very uncomfortable to look at. Like the parts that I'm not excited about,
Mhm.
the parts I'm embarrassed about,
Yeah.
the stuff that doesn't feel good. And there's things I want to change, but how do I take all of that and lovingly change it?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like the things that I tell people all the time, I'm like, there is a Khanyi that I don't enjoy, but where I invite love to that Khanyi is I've had to be.
Yeah.
People pleasing protected me.
Yeah.
It made me feel safe. At times it made me feel seen, right? At times it made me feel loved.
Mm.
At times it made me feel connected. It wasn't a real connection. It was an authentic connection,
Right.
but it made me feel connected. And so I don't get to hate things that have created somebody who can survive life.
Yeah.
But radical self-love is, let's put it all on the table and let's love it and let's change it.
It's really
And
good.
so radical self-love is, I'm going to do the hard shit too.
Yeah. It's
Hmm.
loving you, for every side of you, for every shadow
All
part,
of it.
for the dark, the
All
light,
of
the
it.
good, the bad.
The
And
in between.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
And it's like always happening. It's forever gonna be something that you have to work on is the biggest
Hmm.
thing I've found is like there's not just one, you do one activity or you find that self-love and then it never goes away again. It
Yeah.
definitely kind of rides in waves and you have to
Hmm.
keep bringing it back up and working on it. How do you build
And it
muscle to do
and
that?
it shines a lot to so much. My clients, like, when they bring me something difficult and they're like, I don't know what to do here, I say to them, what would a self-loving version of yourself do? And when you can be like, if I loved myself, I would disengage. Woo!
Right.
If I loved myself, I would not participate.
Right.
If
Right.
I loved myself, I would walk away. That's what radical self-love is. And when you start asking yourself that question and you look at your life, you go, oh, I'm not self-loving here.
Mm-hmm. Because I have my clients all the time. I'm like, what would you tell your friend? If she asked you
Yes.
this question, what would you tell your friend? And then they can see
Mm-hmm.
it so differently just by removing themselves and their egos and their fears and seeing it through the lens of, I love that person so much. This is what I would
Yeah.
want them to do.
You're
They
like, if you loved yourself, what would you do?
exact. I love that question. I can feel that. It's so
You
good.
should.
It's so
It really works
yeah.
because even when someone is like struggling to make a decision, even if they choose to stay, they stay knowing, whew, this is not self-love.
Mm-hmm.
This is not
Mm-hmm.
self-choosing.
How do you build self-trust? I think that's
Mm.
something that so many people I know and my clients they struggle with, where it's like they can kind of understand this self-love piece, but then
Mm-hmm.
learning how to trust themselves and their intuition or whatever it is that they need or what they're being told within themselves to leave, to stay, whatever it is, they can't seem to
Mm-hmm.
tap into that trust. The love,
Mm-hmm.
they can kind of get there, but I think the
Mm-hmm.
trust is where they really, really struggle. They can't figure out and am I listening to my inner voice? Am I listening to other people's? Am I listening to my trauma? Like, what is the truth? How do you
Mm-hmm.
trust yourself?
You should listen to your trauma. Your trauma knows. Um, I think that, it's all about, I think you said something earlier about like having it be something that's like building a muscle, right? So when we lack in self-trust, we have to start doing things that make us build self-trust. And you
Like,
start small.
yes.
I know it's like, even with self-love, right? Like people are like, how do I love myself? I'm like, go do shit.
Mm,
Go do shit that makes you go, oh, this is very self-loving of me to do. That's how you love yourself.
yeah.
And it's the same with self-trust. It's the same with confidence. It's the same with self-esteem. Do estimable shit.
Wow. Yeah.
And with self-trust, it's like choose a non-negotiable. Choose one thing that you are going to do every day. It
Mm,
can be as small as I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to drink a glass of water every single morning for 2 weeks. Because so far, self trust, right? When you're not trusting of yourself, you're someone who is constantly going back on their word with yourself. Every time you make a promise to yourself, you break it. You make a promise to yourself, you break it. And building that self trust it's training your brain that I'm somebody who makes a promise to myself and I keep that promise.
And it really is in the small things. I know
It's
for
in the
me,
tiniest of
the
things.
smallest things that you wouldn't even think twice about. I know for me, when I was like getting out of a 10-year depression, I was riddled with anxiety. All I did was I started making my bed in the morning. That's it. I had this whole mentality. I don't need to make my bed. I'm going to get back into it. That's so stupid. What's it matter? But really what I would tell people. It was my mentality. And then I started just making it in the morning and feeling better about my space and then better about myself. And then
Mm-hmm.
learning that, wow, you made this silly little promise to yourself, but you're sticking with it every day. And
Mm-hmm.
from there, I kept compounding. It's so true.
Absolutely. And then
Esteemable acts build esteem.
I tell my clients 2 weeks, do that thing for 2 weeks, be consistent before you add anything else. And here's another thing. People get so excited. And so people want to add 10 more things. I'm like, no, you're going to fail.
So true.
You're not this person yet.
Right.
You can get there.
Right.
You're going to overwhelm yourself. You're going to fail. And then you're going to add on to the shame of being a failure. Atomic Habits, right? Is kind
Mm.
of like where he talks about in that book. Just do small things.
Is that what you would tell somebody who it goes beyond like the self-love and it's an actual habit they have ingrained in themselves? Either like,
Mm-hmm.
it could be a small thing of drinking coffee too early in the morning and then being thrown off all day and not eating, like silly little things like that. Do you think that just starting small will build the better habits? Is that what you would tell them?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like the gym is such a perfect example for life.
Yeah.
It's like you wanna start working on your health, start small. I had a client who was like, I eat junk food every day. And I said to them, why don't you just eat it 5 times a day?
Right. Right.
And then the third week, I said, how's that junk food addiction? She was like, honestly, I haven't really been eating it.
Wow. It's true.
Yeah.
It piles on. And then suddenly
Yeah.
you look back and you're like, who was that person?
Who was?
I used to do that.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah. And she used to vape too. And she was like, wow, Coach, I used to vape. So gross. I'm so old.
that's when you can look back and you're like, I don't even recognize who I was.
What?
Yeah.
That is though what I would tell people, Kate. I would say whatever change you want to make, whatever thing you want to move through in your life, start small.
Mm.
There's this pressure. I have a friend of mine who does emotional healing,
Mm-hmm.
and he like taps into these deep levels of empathy. And so
Wow.
when you hang out with him, he's weird. You'll be hanging out with him and he'll just be like, oh, you're thirsty. Can you please drink some water? I feel like you're choking me. He's like, it's not me because I've been drinking water the whole
Oh my
time.
God.
Could you drink some water so I'll be okay? I'm like, okay. But he said something, he was giving me a session a few months ago, and he was like, you have this like urgency to heal. And that's what happens, right? You're like, you see all your shit, and then you're like, oh, no, I gotta heal now. And he was like, that's not how healing works. And you're gonna put pressure on yourself when you do that. He's like, you don't need to heal. You're not broken. There's nothing to fix.
Yeah.
Yes, there's growth and yes, there's healing, but you don't approach it with this like it has to happen now.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I tell people, like it doesn't have to happen now. I'm going to be 40 years old in 6 months, and I'm not going to break 40-year-old habits in 2 months or
Thank you.
3 months. It's going to take time.
Amen. I say
Hallelujah.
if it took you 10, 20, 30 years to build this habit, to build this pattern behavior, it's not going to go away in 2 weeks. It's just not.
No,
And I see
no.
that a lot with my clients where we do like a 2 to 3 month program and they're like, I'm seeing some shifts, but not all the shifts I want. And I'm like, you have to keep going. It is a constant. And like you're saying, start small, heal something, and then add on in the future. And I find that I did so much healing work and now I'm in a much better place, but still things are being revealed to me that I can improve on in my character and in my heart. And it's just a never ending journey. And I think that's what's so beautiful.
And that's the beauty of it, right? Is that when you started, like when things come up now, I'm not scared of myself.
Mm.
And I'm not even one of the most powerful things that happened to me is like, I'm not scared to own my shit. And it makes me an amazing partner because I will tell you my shit.
Yep.
Like I'm not worried about you judging me. I judge you for judging me. And if
Totally.
you judge me for having shit, then what are we doing? Like even the post I posted yesterday was like, I'm a healing healer here. I'm someone that's going through this stuff because I refuse to present perfection. I'm not perfect. No one is. Because if I present perfection, then I'm going to start expecting everyone else to be perfect.
Exactly.
And that's going to come back and bite me in the ass.
Right. Because it's not real.
Because no one is. It's not real.
Yeah, it's not authentic.
No.
I loved your posts yesterday about I am a healer who's healing. And I think so many people get hung up on not sharing their story or not helping other people because they know they still have more healing to do and they feel shame and they don't feel like they're good enough to help other people. What would you tell that person who has the capability but is just scared?
Oh, I love that person. I'm actually starting a program to mentor those people.
Ooh,
The coaching space is full of messages that I don't enjoy.
Amen. So true. It's kind of how we connected, where we were like,
oh, we're like, what the?
Maybe the best wisdom.
What? I think that, what makes the coaches that I'm attracted to are people who sit in their shit and they can be like, I've gone through this and I'm still going through this. I don't listen to perfect people. I think I can't reach you.
Yeah.
I can't relate to you. And the coaching industry kind of like, for me, it mimics that like native practice of community. And that native practice of community is let's sit around and give each other wisdom.
Beautiful.
Like I've gone through it. Maybe I can help you go through it.
Right.
Like, and we start to see the connections in our humanity and the ways that we are so similar. We think we're different.
We are
It's
not.
ridiculous. We are not. And like my first book is called Traveling While Black and Lesbian. And throughout the book, what I've learned is we are not different.
It's so true.
I lived with Muslims and in Malaysia for about a year and a half. And what I learned from my Muslim roommates was that they were struggling with things that I was struggling with when I was a teenager in the church. The exact same stuff. And when you're being like, oh, like Christianity is the only true way, I'm like, bro,
it's all the same.
It's all the same.
It really is.
It's all human stuff. Yeah.
We all want the same things. We have the same desires. That means we have the same struggles. It's just inevitable. I love that you show up so authentically to your clients and to the world, even in your social media, because it does make people feel safer with you. Like I told you over and over after the event, like I felt safe with you. I love that you were sitting next to me on the panel and you just felt real. And I was like, thank goodness she's here. And that's why I connected with you so easily. But people just are scared of living in authenticity because of the way people perceive them. How do you help somebody live a more aligned life?
You've been hitting me with these questions.
I don't even think I've asked you really any questions that I sent you. So
I'm like, wait, I wasn't prepared for this.
I'm sorry about that. But your answers were all beautiful.
Coffee. Okay. Give me more anxiety.
And every time you need to think, take a sip of coffee. I'm like not letting myself have any more coffee. So you drink for me.
I got you. The reason that we fear authenticity for a lot of us is we have this desire to be understood, to be loved, to be accepted. And a lot of people are in environments and communities where in order to experience those things, you have to conform. You have to be like everybody else. And the thing that I've done with myself, like continue to do, is I'm not here to be liked. When you start to remove that desire to be liked, you are going to live the most authentic, like try to, right? Like I know there are people that don't like me. I'm not for everybody. I'm not digestible for. There are people who are like block, unfollow. I'm like, yo, do you do what feels good?
Sure.
I've learned, and it took a long time. I was saying to a friend of mine, and this is like when it comes to the world, I'm totally different when it comes to relationships, but I don't have this need for people to like, love, and accept me. I like, love, and accept me. And that has made me show up authentically every single time. Like, at the event, I wasn't wearing shoes, and my friends were like, "What the fuck were your shoes?" And I was like, "No, I felt grounded. I needed to feel grounded. Something was off in that space, and I needed to feel grounded." And they were like, "Oh, okay." Like, and so, but if I wasn't connected to myself, I would have kept my shoes off, and I wouldn't have been the best. I wouldn't have served.
Sure.
Right? Coaching is serving. I wouldn't have served the best way I could have. But when you remove this deep desire for people to like, love, and accept you, and you learn how to like, love, and accept yourself, then you will start showing up authentically.
That's so true. I feel like I'm just going to take that part, what you just said, and I'm going to blast it everywhere because everybody needs to hear it.
Yeah, I'll share it.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody needs to hear that message because it comes from within. And then all the other noise, all the other voices, the other opinions, they kind of just fall to the wayside. And by you showing up authentically, that's how I connected with you. That's how the right people will connect with you.
But here's the thing about authenticity that we don't talk enough about. First of all, you have to know who you are before you show up authentically.
Very true.
Many people don't know who the fuck they are.
Yep.
That's okay. We can get there.
Yeah.
And the second thing is you have to understand that authenticity will cost you stuff.
Wow. I've never heard that, and I want to write it
Yes.
down. That's so good.
It will cost you relationships.
Wow.
It will cost you family members. It will cost you friendships. It will cost you denied opportunities.
Mm.
Authenticity is this thing that everyone's like, go be authentic. It's like, no, let's talk about the cost of it too.
Sure. Sure.
The concept, like, there's a trade-off. What are you willing to trade off? And yes, part of that trade-off is there's so much power in walking into a room and being like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
I show up. If you don't have a seat for me at the table, I'll bring my own fucking seat. Like, I'm good. But when you start the journey towards authenticity, it is like, what are you willing to lose? When I came out, I lost so much, but it is also the best thing I could have ever done.
Because you know what? You don't lose yourself.
And there are people who will love the fuck out of you just as you are. There's community. Yes. Always. And so, but the first step is to know who you are, know who you want to be, and also be okay with the trade-off, the stuff, the consequences of authenticity.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's true. We just say, be authentic, everything will be great from there. But it is. You set boundaries with people, you lose friendships, you lose family relationships, and it's extreme.
You lose romantic relationships.
Yes. So many.
Can we talk about that? You're like, oh, I'm someone who does this now. Boy is like, no. We connected on us doing this, and you sitting there being like, I'm not that person anymore. I am. This one is hard. When you are with someone for, say, 5 years, and they expect you to be that person they met 5 years ago, and there's no alignment in that relationship anymore because you are no longer that person you were 5 years ago.
Right.
And they haven't done the job of learning how to love the different versions of you.
It's so true, because we will change. Who I am today is nowhere near who I was last year or the year before.
No.
So if you can't love me through those changes and through those seasons, and me doing that for you in return, we're going to struggle. And I think
there's no alignment.
There's no alignment because you didn't grow with each other or give each other the space to grow, at least, and still accept where each other is. It's so true.
Like a new thing that I discovered with you know who is
we won't say any names, but yes, I do.
We won't say any names, but you know who is I want to marry you every 5 years.
I love that.
Doesn't have to be a big wedding. We can do like a cute little thing because there's that 5-year period of like, oh, we've been through so much. Do I still want to be here?
Beautiful.
I'm not committed to a lifetime partnership. I'm committed to a lifetime alignment with someone. So after 5 years, are we still aligned? Do we still want to be doing this?
Right.
Yeah.
How do we become aligned if we didn't? It's that's why I tell people all the time, love is so good, but love will not carry you through the long haul. If there is just love and not respect and understanding and willingness to grow with each other, it doesn't matter how much you love somebody. And that's a cold, hard truth. But it is true.
It is a hard truth, but it's also a truth that will kind of set you free. And I think it's also very beautiful to watch someone grow and just be like, I still want you in your growth. I still want to be here.
Absolutely. It's just like a refreshed love. That's all it is. You just keep refreshing it. That's beautiful. So a question I have for you, speaking of love and speaking of self-love specifically, when I thought about this last night before I was going to bed, I was like, oh, I have to ask her.
Another question you didn't send me?
I know, I'm sorry. I keep doing this to you, but all your answers are so like graceful and wise. I'm like, I need more. I'm like in my own little coaching session. When does self-love become selfish?
Never.
Tell me more. What you think?
Will stand on that mountain 10 toes down, because people who want to call you selfish no longer benefit from your self-loathing.
Wow. Yeah.
There's never going to be, I was saying this on a live yesterday, part of the immigrant experience is you send money home, and it can get to a point where like you feel resentful. And when I started to love myself and set boundaries and kind of take a step back, it shifted. Now, I want to give my grandmother the world. And because it comes from a self-loving place where I don't feel exhausted or drained or depleted,
Obligated.
or obligated, or that I have to. It's like I want to. I want to make sure she's okay.
Yeah.
And self-love cannot be selfish, because part of loving myself is, if I love myself and I can give myself compassion and care, there is an overflow that will go to everyone else.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
And I would never do it again.
Yeah.
You can, but it's going to leave you feeling awful about yourself.
Yeah, that's really
right? And so I refuse to believe that there's ever going to be a point in my life where people are like, you know what? She loves herself so much, it's a little bit selfish. I want to be selfish.
Yeah.
I want to be bravely selfish. I want to be selfish every day. I say that in my TEDx talk. I want to be selfish every day.
Right.
I want to be selfish with my time. I want to be selfish with who has access to my energy. I want to be selfish with who has access to my wisdom and my knowledge and my body. Like, I can't just keep giving myself to everybody because I'm scared they're going to call me selfish if I don't.
Right.
Be
And
selfish.
That's how you serve.
Yeah.
Through being selfish, it is how you end up serving. I think you're so right, where it's like I can't give if I'm depleted. I can't give if I'm drowning. I'll be dying on my own. It's not possible.
Yeah. And a lot of people relate to it. There's the scripture in Psalms. I used to be a very churchy person, so I remember scripture, but David is like, my cup runneth over. Like, I'm so filled up that my cup, it runs over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if we can do that and show up in our lives with being like, I'm going to pour into myself so much that my cup will run over. And from that overflow, I give to everyone else.
Absolutely. And talk about that being an authentic version of love, where it's not, I am giving to you because I have to, or because I want you to love me. I'm giving to you because I am so full that I have something to give.
How beautiful is that? Like, I have so much that I want to give to you.
Yeah. Out of freedom, out of choice.
Out of choice. Like, I don't love you because I'm obligated to. I love you because I want to love you.
Right.
I show up for you because I want to show up for you.
Very big difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This has been the best conversation. It's the exact same way I felt about our hike conversation. You just you're like a light. If there was just one person listening to this that you want them to hear one specific thing, one specific piece of wisdom or advice, what would that be?
I would say, I already said be selfish. When you start your journey towards radical self-love, which includes boundary setting, and in that boundary setting, it means that you're not going to be showing up the way that you used to show up for people anymore. And what that comes with is guilt. A lot of people struggle with that guilt. And how I have framed it for my clients is, we're so scared of emotions that have been labeled negative. But for me, that guilt is an indication of your humanity, right? When I feel guilty because I've said something that makes someone feel bad, that's a normal emotion to experience. It doesn't mean I have to change my mind and not have the boundary anymore. It just means, I've made someone uncomfortable. This is new for me. This is new for them. I might even lose them in the process, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If I lose you because I've set a boundary with you, because how we've been engaging with each other has not been feeling good, and I set a boundary with you, and in that process, you choose to disengage, for me, that communicates your level of care for me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You were meant to disengage from them.
Because when I set boundaries with people that I love and care about. The boundaries are like, how can we be healthy in this relationship with each other, right? And so what I would offer someone listening is, know that that guilt is A, an indication of your humanity, and B, it is not a reason for you to not do the things that feel good for you. And yeah, go love yourself and be selfish.
So well said. Thank you so
Mm.
much for everything. This is just
Oh yeah, this has been so much
everything
fun.
is so incredible. I can't wait to have everybody listen. They're gonna just soak you up. You're just
Oh,
amazing. You are so
thank you,
wise.
babe.
You have so much to share. Thank you so much, Khanyi, for joining. This has been another episode of Wildly Capable with Kate. See you guys next time.